A split decision on splitting a proposed constitutional amendment. Ahead on Face the State. After the Ohio Ballot Board broke the proposed amendment into two by a 3-2 vote, a grassroots group pushing for equal rights now has double the work to do. This morning, the group's co-chair joins me for a look at what it will take to get the measures on the ballot and why they believe so strongly the amendments are needed. Meantime, another group is pushing forward with its effort to abolish all property taxes in Ohio, where its proposed constitutional amendment stands as Ohio ranks in the top 10 for highest property tax burden. Plus, an uncertain financial future for an organization that advocates for the arts. What a $4 million funding pause means for its efforts to cover Columbus with color. Face the State starts now. Thanks for joining us for Face the State. I'm Doug Petcash. We start today with a story we've been following very closely, an effort to enshrine equal rights in the Ohio Constitution. The grassroots organization, Ohio Equal Rights, has decided to move forward with two separate constitutional amendments. The group will now have to collect more than 400,000 valid voter signatures from 44 of Ohio's 88 counties to get each of the proposed measures on a future ballot for you, the voter, to decide. Here's how we got to this point. On July 9th, the Ohio Ballot Board voted 3-2 along party lines to split the group's proposed constitutional amendment into two separate amendments. The original proposal would have prohibited discrimination based on race, religion, sexual orientation, disability, and a dozen other categories, including pregnancy status, age, recovery status, national origin, and military or veteran status. The proposed amendment also called for the repeal of Ohio's constitutional ban on same-sex marriage. The Constitution now defines marriage as only between a man and a woman. The Ohio Ballot Board ruled these are two separate topics. In a news release, Executive Co-Chair of Ohio Equal Rights, Lise Regula, said it could take months, if not years, to appeal the decision in court. Moving forward, even though it is double the signatures and paperwork, it is the best shot we have at securing equality for every Ohioan in a timely manner. Joining me now to talk about the effort to get these two amendments on the ballot is Ohio Equal Rights Co-Chair Lise Regula. Lise, thanks for being here today.
Yeah.
I really
Thanks for
appreciate
having us, Doug.
it. Certainly. Well, let's start there. What was the focus of your discussions in deciding to go forward with two amendments?
So we tend to be data-driven. So first order of business after the decision was to figure out exactly what it would cost as far as additional printing costs, legal fees, and time for our options. From that, we were able to put together a survey and hold a town hall asking the community their input, putting forward the information we had gathered, asking what they thought would be the best course of action if they were in our shoes.
And did you just decide basically that challenging the ballot board's decision would take too long in the courts or be too much work?
It would be added time, yes. It would also be added cost, and we're not sure of what the outcome would be. With a 6-1 Ohio Supreme Court, there's not certainty that the single issue would have been upheld in the way that precedent has previous to now.
Okay, I see. So the ballot board decided 3-2, as I mentioned, to split the amendment, saying the anti-discrimination list and the effort to repeal the constitutional ban on same-sex marriage were two separate issues. Can you see their reasoning in that vote? That those are two separate things?
I can see the argument that some folks can and do make that marriage equality is separate than individual rights. At the same time, people are social organisms. We have relationships, not just romantic, but also platonic and familial. And if I am restricted in how I can engage in relationships with another individual, then to my understanding and to our organization's belief, that really restricts how I as an individual can interact with the world.
So the big picture here, what is this effort all about?
The effort is about protecting Ohioans. yes, we do want to have those equal rights amendment language in our state constitution.
And it's not there right now.
No, currently the language, I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but it boils down to all men are created equal. Oratorically great, legally doesn't really give a lot of guidance as to how that plays out in our day-to-day life, which is why Ohioans often have to rely on federal protections. As we're seeing those federal protections change and shift in real time, especially now with Kim Davis coming up in the news again, it's become more obvious that as a state, it is important for us to have recourse to be able to uphold our values and our priorities and our rights at a state level as well. That's not just a moral issue, it's also an economic issue. How many Ohioans have the time and money to go up to the federal Supreme Court?
Mm-hmm. What's Kim Davis? What's that about?
So Kim Davis was the, I believe, West Virginia clerk who made national news a number of years ago because she was refusing to issue marriage certificates to same-sex couples. That was part of the lead up to what eventually got us to Obergefell versus Hodges and put same-sex marriage as an equal issue across the U.S.
And you mentioned Obergefell, the U.S. Supreme Court ruling that legalized same-sex marriage. It was based on an Ohio case. Is part of this effort now and the timing because there's been some talk about possibly overturning the Obergefell ruling?
Yes, and this is, while I highlight Kim Davis's recent reemergence, this is not necessarily a new thing. In the Dobbs decision, the Supreme Court decision that overturned Roe v. Wade, Obergefell was listed as a case that possibly could be reevaluated under this new Supreme Court, new at that point.
All right, so looking at this practically now, where do you go from here? What do you have to do? What's it going to take to get this on the ballot?
So we currently have the split titles and summaries at the Attorney General's office. We should have a decision back from them by the 11th, so Monday. Fingers crossed. We're not at all waiting impatiently.
Got some work to do.
Yes, we do. And then once we have that decision, we've got our petition tracking system in place. We've got that logistical component ready to go, and we can move on to getting the physical petition books printed and distributed so that Ohioans can start signing and saying, yes, I want to be able to have a choice in how our Ohio Constitution protects us.
Now, you'll have to get 414,000 valid signatures verified. That's 10% of the vote in just the prior gubernatorial election, for folks to know why that number is what it is.
Yeah.
Are you confident you can get that for 2 amendments?
Yes. In part because most people, when we have been talking with them about these topics, they understand that these two things are very much connected. They also understand that, especially once we get into more conversation and talking about, well, what's lacking in Ohio's Constitution, they understand the need for bringing this here. Some of the classes that we list as protected go above and beyond what are currently protected under federal statute and are incredibly impactful for Ohioans. We have heard for years now about the addiction epidemic in Ohio, and being able to protect folks from being harmed by their status in recovery. And I want to be clear, behavior is different than identity. So if someone is coming into their job drunk, that's not the same as an employer saying,
You have a past.
Yeah, those are two different things. The amendment and those equal rights apply to the identity, not the behavior. So being able to help Ohioans hold jobs and not have their past held against them as they try to rebuild their future and present, that's a good thing that impacts so many people.
Which election are you shooting for?
We are aiming for 2026.
November or May?
November.
And is the reason of that because of large voter turnout?
It's in part timing. It's in part making sure that we can get these protections in place sooner rather than later. Time lost is more people potentially suffering harm from the lack of these protections.
And so basically you'll have to have these signatures then by next July 1st or so in order to get it on the 2026 November election. Well, Lise Regula, thank you so much for coming in to update us on the situation right there. Of course, we'll continue to track it here on Face the State and on 10 TV News.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thanks for your
Glad
time.
to be here.
All right, still ahead on Face the State, 1 year of legal recreational marijuana. Just how much money is being added to Ohio's pot, and is it going where it's supposed to go? Plus, are you tired of paying more and more property taxes? One group is so fed up, they want to end them completely. Where their effort stands as Ohio's tax burden ranks in the top 10. Property taxes in Ohio are some of the highest in the country. A new report from Realtor.com ranks Ohio 8th in the nation for tax burden. That puts the Buckeye State ahead of California and New York. A separate report by the Tax Foundation found property owners in Delaware County have the highest property tax burden in the state. These reports come at a time when state leaders are trying to reform property taxes, and a grassroots group is trying to end them completely.
Larry Hopper and his lifelong friend David Monska get together 2 or 3 times a week to catch up on life and shoot the breeze. Over a cup of coffee in downtown Delaware, they said property taxes come up once in a while.
I wonder sometimes if we as voters are not educated enough about how our taxes work, what we do with them.
Hopper's 97-year-old World War II veteran father Jim lives in Delaware County. Larry says his dad is getting by financially, but property taxes on top of medical bills makes his budget a little tighter.
His house is basically paid off, but he just, can struggle with the other expenses in life. And then you add the tax burden onto that, makes it, it's not easy.
This map from the Tax Foundation shows 2023 median property taxes by county. The darker blue, the higher the taxes. Delaware County has the highest median taxes in Ohio at nearly $6,900 a year, and the highest between New Jersey and the Chicago area. Hopper says he's not surprised.
I have heard that before.
As property tax bills continue to rise, a grassroots group is pushing a constitutional amendment to abolish them. The Committee to Abolish Property Taxes says homeowners are being taxed out of their houses. While lawmakers passed major tax reforms, the governor vetoed several, citing harm to schools and students. He's also formed a working group to recommend changes, but the committee says their fight isn't over.
We're going to tell the legislators we're not stopping. If the people are willing to collect the signatures, we're willing to stand on the front line for the citizens of the state of Ohio.
Selfishly, I love it. I really do.
But Hopper really believes the government needs to do more, and so do the people.
And we as citizens need to take, too, by keeping up to date on these things.
The grassroots group will have to submit 414,000 valid voter signatures to the Secretary of State by January 1st to get the amendment on the May ballot. Massey says he's confident they'll be able to do it, but if they miss that deadline, they'll try for November. The state of Ohio is making all state agencies find a way to keep cyber criminals out. As part of the state budget, the state is requiring all agencies that are audited by the state to have a security plan in place by September. As 10 TV's Kevin Landers found out, not only is the state trying to prevent the theft of your personal information, they're also trying to prevent school districts and others from paying ransoms when a data breach does happen.
July 18, 2024 was a dark day for the city of Columbus. It would reveal a cyber attack exposed personal information on the dark web. At the time, Columbus Mayor Andrew Ginther downplayed the breach.
Sensitive files were either encrypted or corrupted, making them totally unusable.
That same day, his statement was contradicted by a cybersecurity expert who viewed the data.
Those two databases, which contain private information, they contain Social Security numbers.
The incident forced the city to shut down its web services. The good news, the city did not pay a ransom. Today, the mayor says the city has made changes to prevent another breach.
We've made significant investments into improving, both adding staff and additional precautions and changes to our cybersecurity efforts to do everything in our power to reduce risk and vulnerability in the future.
500,000 citizens were impacted. Fast forward to today, the state is requiring any agency that is audited by the state to have a system in place to thwart cyber criminals.
That does not just include cities and counties, includes townships, villages, school districts. It includes water districts.
And the state isn't funding any of it.
So is this an unfunded mandate?
You could call it that, yeah.
Under House Bill 96, it would require entities to report a cyber threat to the Department of Public Safety within 7 days. Within 30 days, the state auditor must be notified.
We will have metrics as to how many ransomware attacks happened, where they attacked, what entities were attacked, how many breaches happened.
The new law also prevents school districts experiencing a ransomware incident from paying or complying with ransom demands unless the district's Board of Education approves it. Any local governments may not pay or comply with ransom demands unless there is a resolution that contains a justification. The chairman of Cyber Ohio says the state of Ohio gets attacked hundreds of thousands of times a day by cyber attackers, but is rarely successful.
Bad guys are constantly scanning us, trying to find holes in our armor.
And if you become a victim of a cybercrime, contact your local police department, your bank, and credit reporting agencies. You can also call the Internet Crime Complaint Center and the FBI. As major wildfires continue to burn in the western U.S., Ohio Senator Bernie Moreno is co-sponsoring a bill to support the men and women who fight them. He and Democratic Arizona Senator Ruben Gallego proposed the Federal Firefighters Families First Act. It would increase pay and benefits as well as improve their working conditions. Last week, Senator Moreno spoke at a roundtable about why he feels this is important.
Mindset, at least, and President Trump's mindset is we're not going to take a long time to solve clear things of fairness. So for the National Firefighters Act, we have that out there now. We're going to get that across the finish line probably in the next reconciliation bill. So we get that done this year.
And right now, federal firefighters typically work 72 hours a week. The bill would establish a 60-hour work week for them. Nearly $1 billion. That's how much money 1 year of recreational marijuana sales has brought into the state. Wednesday marked exactly 1 year since legal sales started. 10 TV's Bryn Caswell follows where that money is going and if it's being reinvested into communities as promised.
August 6, 2024, a day Ernest Philippe won't forget.
I was one of the first customers here at Amplify. Everybody was so happy.
In just 5 days, $11.5 million in sales. By the year's end, $242 million. And this week, exactly 1 year later, recreational cannabis sales in Ohio have now topped $702 million.
Hello, welcome in.
Sage Graham, operations director at Amplify Dispensaries,
have a good day.
Says it's been a wild ride. The revenue is strong, but the rollout still needs work.
Biggest pain point right now is like vape shops because they're like, you know, the products aren't tested quality Ohio products like we have at the dispensary. And there's not a lot of like advertising or marketing or education out there.
When Issue 2 passed, voters agreed that tax dollars would flow back to cities with dispensaries, a promise known as the Host Community Fund. But in some central Ohio cities like Gahanna, the mayor's office says that money still hasn't come. Ohio regulators say they're working on it. So far, non-medical marijuana sales have brought in more than $122 million in revenue for the state.
It was one of the big benefits of bringing cannabis to Ohio is the economic benefit we're going to see in our communities. So we're really hoping that those communities start to see that funding come in soon.
Philippe says while cannabis still divides some neighborhoods, for him, it's personal.
Some people in the neighborhood don't like it. People that do need it are getting help, and it helps them because I know it helps me.
In the meantime, the Ohio Department of Commerce has launched new tools online today to help promote responsible and safe cannabis usage. To find those tools, just head over to our website, 10tv.com. For now, reporting in Columbus, Bryn Caswell, 10TV News.
And the Office of Budget and Management says, quote, it does not have a timeline for when the General Assembly may consider appropriating funds for disbursement to local governments. Meantime, one Columbus organization just lost funds for disbursement to local artists. The deep cuts the Greater Columbus Arts Council had to make after a major funding pause. What it means for the art scene in the city. Next on Face the State. A serious blow to the arts in Columbus. The Greater Columbus Arts Council has had to make some deep cuts after learning $4 million in anticipated funding was put on hold. It's had to cut programs and even a staff member. We went to Victorian Village, where one project that had already received funding just got underway as the GCAC faces an uncertain financial future.
With every spray and swoosh of paint, a mural begins to take shape on a once plain fence in Victorian Village.
I am focused, but this is part of it. It's part of the sauce.
Seriously focused and somewhat frenetic, artist Giovanni Santiago.
Let me stand back for a second. I have to see what I'm doing. Okay, cool.
Brings his vision to life. When finished, the mural will have a portrait of a woman between two colorful peacocks with Victorian elements in honor of its Victorian Village location. The mural's message?
Oh, peace, pride in their culture, pride in the Victorian Village, pride in the Victorian Village culture.
This project is funded by the Greater Columbus Arts Council's Mural Assistance for Artists program.
Public art, murals, sculptures, whatever they are, bring so much in bringing people together, fostering a dialogue, and making people proud of where they live.
The mural program will go on, but the GCAC had to cut 2 other programs for artists as well as marketing and 1 staff member because of unexpected budget cuts. Goldstein says Franklin County had to pause $4 million in anticipated funding for the council amid the trickle-down of federal cuts.
It is heartbreaking. One, because this impacts potentially up to 450 artists who would have received funding from us. The life of a staff person who is very dear to us.
The GCAC had already given 1,300 grant awards to artists, totaling more than $2.1 million this year before the funding pause. Goldstein says the next 5 months are filled with uncertainty, but also hope.
We're part of the community, and we're going to stick together, and we're going to make it through what is probably going to be a little bit of a rough road.
Artists are creative, and Santiago says they will find ways to keep doing what they do.
It's a shame, but I think message to artists is we're not going to stop. We have to keep going. It's our culture.
I reached out to the Franklin County Commissioners for the specific reason for the funding pause. A spokesman sent me a statement saying Franklin County administration recommended deferring funding for the Greater Columbus Arts Council at this time due to unexpected fiscal conditions. We are taking some time to thoroughly review current spending and future spending for the next fiscal year. Part of this will be a consideration of spending for GCAC in the 4th quarter of this year. Now, I want to take a minute to show you the progress on the mural since we shot this story back on Tuesday. This is what it looked like by Thursday afternoon. Santiago expects to finish the 60-foot long by 7-foot tall mural sometime this week. So far, he does not have a name for it. So if you would like to check it out, it's on Hunter Avenue, just off King Avenue in Victorian Village in Columbus. Beautiful work. Thank you for joining me this week for Face the State. I'm Doug Petcash. I'll see you back here next Sunday at 11:30. Hope you have a great day.